Welcome to the Tomorrow Zone Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Deborah Rubin. With the relentless acceleration of AI capabilities today, workflow transformations, so many opportunities, customer expectations are also rising really fast. And often speed is rewarded. And yet, in the rush to scale, automate, optimize, all the things, something critical is often left behind, and that's customer experience. I have felt it. You, as our listeners, has probably felt it. We see it all over the place. So, we're not questioning whether customer experience matters because we know it does. What we're going to tackle today are some of the tougher questions, like who owns it? And in an AI filled, high pressure environment, is customer experience a department? Is it a metric? Is it a leadership discipline? What does it truly mean to lead customer experience with intention, clarity, and accountability? So today I am joined by Jeannie Walters. Welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you so much, Deb. Good to be here.
So Jeannie is an award-winning customer experience expert, an international keynote speaker, and founder of Experience Investigators. For over 2 decades, she has helped organizations turn customer experience into practical mindset, strategy, and daily discipline, driving measurable business results. And she has a new book coming out, Experience is Everything, Making Every Moment Count in the Age of Customer Expectations. And in her book, she is challenging leaders to really rethink customer experience as more than a function and step into the role of what she calls a customer experience change agent. So I am really excited to explore that with you today, Jeannie.
Thank you.
So how is the book process going for you?
I don't think it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you're in it. So
that's after the first line of my book.
Yeah.
We didn't know what we didn't know.
And I think, writing the book was an experience. And once I got that done, I was like, all right. And now we're in the phase of, getting it out to the world. And it's very exciting. And I'm learning a ton, and I'm getting to connect and reconnect with people like you. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I'm also looking forward to sleeping at some point soon.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit into the future ahead of where you are right now. And I was thinking the same thing. And we are still pedal to the metal.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It
just opens up a whole new level of awesome.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was really excited to reconnect with you and have you on my show because I remember back in September of 2021, you joined us for the Tomorrow Zone Unconference, and you led a conversation about AI, empathy, and the future of customer experience. That was well before the explosion of accessible large language models, generative AI, and all of the newfangled things that we're navigating today. So the world has radically changed, but you were ahead of the curve. And it's interesting looking back and then seeing just how much of that conversation anticipated the moment that we're in right now. There were 3 themes actually. So we had AI in the meeting with us at that time. It was Otter, but I went back to the transcript.
I love it.
And there were 3 big themes that stood out from that session. And I wanted to bring that up because I think that they also come out in the book that you just read and even what I've read so far in your advanced copy. So the big concern back then was this growing tension between automation and empathy. And people were concerned that as technology accelerates, how do we ensure that we're scaling efficiently, but not losing the human touch and the human connection that customers still expect? And that in the industry that I serve at finance, that's a big concern.
Sure.
And then we explore together the idea that customer experience is bigger than just transactions. And it's about the full journey that the customer experiences with your brand. And then we also discuss something that feels even more relevant today, that customer experience is a leadership responsibility. not just a department or function. So it's exciting. At the time, AI was more of like a future capability than a day-to-day tool.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We've seen so much of a revolution with that, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to kind of pick up that conversation from there, and dive into what does it mean for senior leaders now in
yeah.
this crazy world that we're living in. So you describe in your book customer experience as a combination of mindset, strategy, and discipline. What does that mean for senior leaders who are in that CX kind of a role?
Yeah, well, I would challenge every leader to think of themselves as in a CX role because we all have influence over it and we all play a role. And I think the other thing to remember is that we don't have to have this conversation. You don't have to read my book. Your customers are still having a customer experience, right? Like no matter what. So I tend to separate it a little bit as there's customer experience, which is what's happening no matter what. And then there is customer experience leadership and strategy. And if we can be proactive and intentional, we can actually influence both what happens to the customer in a positive way and the organizational results that we get from that. And so when I was working with these different leaders and teams over decades, I started realizing that there is this good intentions, right? Like people want to do the right thing and they love talking about it, but there wasn't enough process structure, real business acumen backing it up. And so that's when I started talking about okay, having the right mindset is absolutely important. You need a centralized way to agree this is who we are to our customers, no matter what, because otherwise you're asking every single individual in your organization to make a judgment call. Because I see a lot of things saying, well, we know that we have to deliver great customer experiences. Everybody knows that. But what does great mean? How do we define that? You cannot deliver what you don't define. And so the first step that I see is like, let's define that. That's the mindset. That's the aligned mindset. But if you stop there, which a lot of organizations do, they say, here's the poster on the wall, Jeannie. Look, like we say that we care about customers. We've asked everybody to be customer centric. And they believe that's enough. But if we don't define it as connected to an overall strategy that will be connected to your overall strategy as an organization, then you can be really nice to customers, but you won't necessarily see those organizational results because you're not pulling the right levers, you're not measuring the right progress, you're not defining what is it that success means in 1 year, 5 years, et cetera. And then the last part of that is great, you have the mindset, you have the strategy. What does that really take in your day-to-day work, in the cross-functional collaboration you need because CX is a team sport, we need everybody involved. And how do we know what our priorities are every day? Because in most customer experience teams, everything becomes a priority because it's reactionary. They're hearing about complaints. They're getting, the CEO goes to Disney World with his family and comes back and says, we need to be the Disney of plastic manufacturing. And everybody's like, great, let's be the Disney of, and nobody knows what it means, but everybody's on board.
I've actually been in meetings where people have said stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. Or the Amazon of, or and so the whole idea of the mindset strategy discipline is saying this is a real part of the business that if we do this well, it is absolutely a winning business strategy. But we have to do more than talk. We have to do more than plan, and we have to do more than react. We have to be proactive and intentional.
I love this so much. It is so aligned with the things that I talk about in my book, Enter the Tomorrow Zone, aligning, imagining, co-creating, empowering, evolving. But it really is about getting clear up front and having a shared understanding of what these things mean. How are we defining success? What does success look like? And for every bit of terminology that we throw out there, um, you're like causing a flashback for me because I remember a very sincere leader very enthusiastic about customer experience, telling his business team, and this was inside of a bank,
Mm-hmm.
you need to behave like a startup fintech.
Mm-hmm.
Not a one of the people in that group had ever experienced being a part of a startup, so they would never know that mindset, let alone the definition of fintech at the time, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
And so it's
completely.
like we can think, that everybody understands, but until we verify and clarify,
Yeah. Yeah.
usually they don't.
And I think another step in that kind of evolution is understanding that my version of great might be different than yours. And it doesn't mean one is wrong or right, because we create our own value judgments based on life experience and, the different opportunities we've had, all sorts of things. So I might think, you know what, a great experience means we have to be the fastest in town, right? Like that's what that means. That's what people want. But that's not always the case. And sometimes you can't be speedy and the most accurate. And so you have to make a judgment call there. So then you're putting people into positions where you're assuming that they know what you mean when you say great or exceptional. A lot of times I start with the question like, what is the promise you've made customers? What is your brand promise? And a lot of people get very proud and they say, we are delivering the most exceptional experience to every customer every time. And I want to say, like, no, you're not. Like, you're not. So let's stop saying that. Let's instead help everybody in the organization understand that we have agreed that we're going to show up in a way that is honest, in a way that is accurate, in a way that is fast within a parameter. Because if we tell people get back to people soon, that can mean 20 minutes, that can mean 48 hours, that can mean 2 weeks. So we have to get really clear on understanding who we are and who our customers are, because otherwise it's just like a free for all.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and the other thing too, I'm thinking about everything that you're saying, I'm taking it in and just thinking about all the experiences that I've had with clients as we've tried to figure out what what does the customer experience need to look like. The other thing is like the vantage point and the context and the scenario also determines some of those definitions, because like some parts of the end-to-end life cycle of this relationship with the customer, speed does matter and is one of the measures of success for that part of the experience. But later on, it's down to accuracy, when legal docs start to become involved and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it really deserves a lot of attention. So, in many organizations, though, when we talk about customer experience or CX, it might still be treated as just a department. So,
Mm-hmm.
what changes? What do you see when leaders start to see customer experience as more of a leadership responsibility instead of just a department or an assignment?
Well, and in some ways, you're lucky if you have a department or a team, right? Like a lot of organizations still never talk about this. They never think about it, or they might do the bare minimum of like measuring customer feedback, and they hold that up as, look, we're doing customer experience because we're sending surveys. And so when I think about CX leaders, and I made it a point in the book to really try to address people who didn't have customer experience in their title necessarily, because what I see is that we usually do have somebody at the top who kind of has that aha, who realizes this is important. We need to invest in this. We need to get on the same page. And once you have that leadership buy-in, everything changes, because they start realizing, okay, if we can get our leaders in a general way, so our marketing and our finance and our operations and all the folks, if we can get them to understand that this is more than somebody else's job, this is something we all deliver. And one of the examples I talk about is, during the pandemic, when everything shut down, all of the sudden, every customer experience leader was saying, well, oh my gosh, this is supply chain. This is their problem. They're creating all these customer experience issues. It's like, yes. Are you talking to them? Are we collaborating on what are the expectations that we're setting for customers? And do they, the supply chain people, understand that this is having this impact that it is? we cannot wait for those crisis moments. We have to work collaboratively all the time and go to these different teams and say, you know what? If we do this well, everybody wins. And this is what I keep coming back to is a lot of discussion in kind of the customer experience industry is like, well, you've got to build your business case for individual investments. I argue that's great. You need that as part of a bigger strategy. Because if everybody understands, you know what, if we do this well, retention goes up, customer acquisition goes up, employee experience goes up, because people like working in a place where customers are actually happy and not complaining all the time. All these things happen. That means a win for everybody. That means we all get our bonuses, folks. That means that we are able to hire easier because we become a workplace of choice, all these things. But we have to give people a what's in it for me. And we haven't really been taught to think of customer experience as part of the business in the same way as sales or operations or marketing. And we really need to address that because it is a winning business strategy.
Yeah, I mean, and as I'm listening to you, it sounds like really the idea is elevating it to more of an enterprise consideration. It's not a fragmented, siloed thing, which maybe it was thought about that way in the past, but we need something that's more unified. And so that kind of leads me to my next question. We consider the pace of change today is pretty dramatic.
Yeah. With a big D.
Yeah. Or like a big, outrageous.
Yeah.
And so we're all in these fast moving environments. The pressure is high, and we are looking at AI and automation and accelerated decision making. What can leaders do to ensure that customer experience doesn't become fragmented?
Yeah. Well, this is really the big challenge I think that most organizations have because right now it is fragmented and it's reactionary. It's really about finding things based on what people are telling you, based on feedback, based on things breaking literally, and then fixing those things kind of individually and hoping for the best. And when we do that, it becomes whack-a-mole, right? Like you're just like sitting there trying to get the different things and another one pops up. And then the other part of that is if it's not connected to a bigger strategy. I mean, you bring up a great example with like in one part of of the journey, we might need to be incredibly quick and reactive to customers because speed is what will move them to the next part of the journey. But then we get them in a different part of the journey. We need to be strategic about, okay, let's set the right expectations so they know that this is going to take some time, but it's because we're accurate, et cetera, et cetera. When we're setting those expectations, that is what builds trust with customers. And right now, in today's incredible pace, expectations are changing all the time, not because of the environment and the experience we're providing, but because of what's happening everywhere else. So that's why we have people who they've been doing things the same way for decades. And they're kind of like, why are customers leaving us all of a sudden? Well, it's because you don't have a mobile app, right? And in today's world, that's everybody's expecting that. Well, we've never had that. Why do they need that now? Because that's how we live. So we have to constantly look around at not just, I talk a lot about like the customers' real lives because a lot of the marketing graphics and things like that we've been kind of brought up in business education, they're very linear. They make all these assumptions about like you get a customer and they march through your funnel and they do this and then they do this. But really they're just trying to live their lives and get stuff done. So we have to adapt to that too. So when we talk about expectations, it's really important to kind of have that broader perspective of, you know what, somebody's trying to make this return on their lunch break, right? And this is a giant pain. They have not walked into the store in 10 years, but you're making them walk into the store because you won't do online returns in the way that is most convenient for customers. So it's like pulling the thread in a totally different way. I think I went in a million tangents there, but
No, I'm like, I hear you. And I'm thinking about like all the experiences. I mean, when we listen to things like that, you can think of so many experiences where you've run into that. Like I work with one finance company for my business. Just simply, it's 2026 and still cannot take an electronic
Right.
payment.
Right. Yeah. I
And
know.
once a year, I have to write a check. And I have to
I know.
remember how
I
to
know.
write a check. And then I have to get in my car and take it across town to get it,
Yeah.
in time for tax deadlines and whatnot. But I'm like, this is the most ridiculous
Yeah.
experience.
It
And
really
it's
is.
disconnected from everything. Everything else they do is digital,
Yeah. I mean, and
except this one process.
the reason that that continues is because they're not seeing it as part of that customer experience. They're like, oh, that's that process. Yeah, it's a pain. I don't know who's in charge of that. I don't know how to fix that legacy system. And so they just push it aside because it doesn't fit in their process. And I think that is really the crux of what I encourage people to do is if you are looking at everything through a process lens, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out on what's actually happening with your customers. And if you look at a traditional business plan, it's all about acquiring customers in the beginning. It's all about marketing. How are you going to get the word out? How do you sell? Great, you sell, you turn the page, and it all becomes internal process. And so that's how we're trained to look at things. But if we're not thinking through, like, oh my gosh, this means somebody has to get in a car and bring us their check. Like, that is ridiculous. If we're not thinking of those things, it looks like it's working on paper. And that's the like people who work with me on my team, they joke about it because they're like, oh my gosh, you've made me like my radar is up all the time now when I'm a customer and I see all these ways that people can make it easier and they're not. And they're like, how dare you? But it's once you
Yeah.
see it, you can't unsee it, right? Like
Yeah. It's tough to
everywhere.
move through life if you have had any kind of experience or background in designing
Yes.
experiences. I used to design software. And so, like,
Yep.
my tolerance for bad software is so
Oh
low
my
and
gosh.
unbearable.
Don't even get me started on
Yeah.
like drop downs for age. I'm like, there's got to be a better way than starting at like
I
1900. This
know. I'm
is
like a year older just now that I have found where my age is on this drop down.
exactly.
So one of the things you talk about in your new book is becoming a customer experience change agent. And like, oh, first of all, like everybody's talking about agents, human agent, AI agent. What is a CX change agent? So first of all, if you could kind of define what that is, but then also no change happens until behavior changes, right? So what sort of behaviors or decisions really distinguish a true customer experience change agent from a leader who simply supports customer experience in theory, or maybe some of the customer experience theater we might see out there. We want the optics of doing customer experience. What does real change agent look like?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely talking about humans in this case, but that could
I've
change.
had a
Like
whole day of AI, so
we could have some really lovely, robot assistants at some point, but the the idea that I really encourage people to grab onto is some of this you can't change right away. And I would love if everybody said, you know what, we're going to start with that mindset. We're going to get our customer experience mission statement figured out and get that through the company. And then, oh, that would be great. But we don't live in that world. And part of that is there is an awareness that people build with this. And so sometimes people will be in a role like product manager or chief marketing officer or in a digital role, and they start looking around and thinking, wait a second, we're not really prioritizing how to make things better for the customer. We're not really connecting this to, we have all these big goals. What if we did better with the customers that we were keeping? Like they're walking out the door and nobody's talking about it. Once you have that awareness, I always encourage people to start where you can. And sometimes that is as simple and rocking the boat as asking in your meeting, asking as you're developing process, okay, but how will this impact the customer? Like that question is not asked enough. And if we can start asking that question, then we start getting other people to build that awareness muscle. And then you start really thinking through like, okay, what could we do about this? What are we really trying to do for the customer? How can we actually deliver that? How do we know if we're successful? You start pulling the thread of what does this really mean? And I've seen some really cool things happen with, one organization that I worked with. They were very disciplined about measuring customer feedback. And then the CX team, which at the time was just called the Net Promoter Score team, like that was their role, was to track Net Promoter Score, NPS. So they would literally take their little results and go to the different departments and be like, please, department person, like, look at all the bad results we're getting. And they would kind of shrug them off because it wasn't part of their role. They weren't held accountable. They had all these other things. It wasn't part of their roadmap. So month after month, nothing changed, but they were so invested because they had spent all this money setting up the systems and setting up the process. So I started coaching one of their leaders. And one of the first things I did was I was like, let's change the name of your team, right? Let's just take that one little step forward and start talking about this in a different way. And let's take another baby step here. And let's talk about the fact that we can't change these results. Like, we are the messengers in this case. You are not responsible for the mobile app. You are not responsible for invoicing, right? So we have to start building coalitions with these groups. Well, what if we took that one step further? So it was literally like baby step, baby step, baby step over about a year and a half. And then her boss realized, oh my gosh, look at all the incredible changes that are happening. And so he reached out to me, and then I started working with the whole team, and it went beyond there. And that's really what I think of when I think of CX change agents. Like, what are those baby steps you can take from wherever you are? And I hope that this book gives people the tools to say, okay, I'm going to start here. I'm going to do something. And if you do have leadership purview, if you have the ability to actually change accountability and to influence in that way, then those are the people who can say, you know what? Let's start with this mindset. Let's get it right. And we can literally start from there and build this incredible foundation that will serve you very long term. But sometimes that's just not reality. So I don't want to say like you have to start there, because sometimes we just have to start where we start.
Hmm. Well, it sounds like though, I mean, the shift in starting is realizing that something has to change. And I like that story because your change was actually a reframe,
Hmm.
and you
Exactly.
just updated the identity
Yeah. Yeah.
of
And
that
sometimes
group.
that's what it is.
But then you also kind of boosted their agency to do
Hmm.
something about it.
Hmm.
Like, maybe you're not responsible for these other functions, but there is still something you can do.
Right.
And sometimes
Right.
it's just changing how you're communicating. That's really powerful, to
Hmm.
have a method that is scales, from
Yeah.
the individual to the leader. Can you share an example, Jeannie, of an organization that successfully aligned customer experience with measurable business outcomes?
Hmm.
And if there is an example of that, what did their leadership do differently?
Well, this is another great example of reframing, I think, because a lot of times the measurements that are held up as success in customer experience, a lot of times they are customer feedback metrics. And while those are important, it's important to track how are customers feeling, would they recommend you, all those things. Those are measurements, they're actually not outcomes. And that's the mistake I see in most places. So we need to focus on outcomes. And what I typically do with my clients is when we talk about the mindset, we develop that CX mission statement. When we talk about the strategy, we develop something called a customer experience success blueprint. And this is where we start with, all right, what are your organizational goals? Like, a lot of organizations have 3-year plans. Many of them take forever to do their annual plans, but they say, okay, this year we're focused on market share, or we're focused on reducing expenses or whatever. And I always joke that any organization in the world, doesn't matter what kind, wants two things: more revenue, fewer expenses. So those are where you start, and you say, okay, what could we do that would have an impact on those things. And this is where you have to really think about what would it mean to have 1% higher retention? In some organizations, that can be millions of dollars. What would it mean if we had fewer service calls? Well, that's an expense reduction. There's an example of it was an HVAC organization, big organization. They were having problems with too many repairs. Well, what we discovered was they were very focused on the quantitative feedback, so the numbers that they were getting back from customer satisfaction scores. But they really weren't asking people, why were you so unsatisfied? Well, it turned out that the installers of this kept missing a very basic part of the installation. So then after they would leave, somebody would try to turn it on. It wouldn't work correctly. They'd have to get a repair. The repair people actually got paid for every time they went out. So they had no reason to say this is not working. They were actually quite happy with every repair. Once we identified that, we could fix it like that with training. And then the service cost went way down. Customer satisfaction went way up. It's a win like across the board. So a lot of times it's the fascinating part about this work, and the reason I call my company Experience Investigators is because it really does feel like the best thing we can do is get really curious about why is this actually happening? And don't take the surface, too many repairs. Well, what does that really mean? So when we start looking at when they had their overall strategic vision for the year, they were really aiming to reduce those repairs and they were aiming to get a better reputation. Well, guess what this did, right? So we knew the levers we could pull by explaining we need to invest in training here. We need to make sure that when people are reporting on repairs, we understand exactly what that repair is so we can track when things like this happen. And then we need to follow up with customers in the following ways. And once we came up with that game plan, then we had the buy-in from leadership. We had the buy-in from the installers. They were quite happy, right? And the other key to this is sometimes I go into organizations and they say, well, let's just work at the executive level and then tell everybody what to do. But we brought all those people in the room because they know exactly what's happening. And that's another function that I think we often overlook is we don't give those frontline people access to give us feedback, to give their leadership feedback and say, this is not working for customers. I saw this in a different way where there were returns happening and they had basically put everything on the store manager. It was a retail organization. They put everything on the store manager and said, well, the manager has to do it because the SKUs on the online orders are different than the ones in the store. So this poor manager had to sit there on the phone, call a special number and get the correct numbers for everything. Well, if somebody comes in with a big return, it's a nightmare. I interviewed one of the managers and he said, I have tried to tell people about this, but they keep saying, but the returns are working because they're only looking at that side. So I think we really have to connect all of the dots. And that's often overlooked when we are only on the inside of the organization.
So this is actually something that I deal with a lot. And I'm doing it in the arena of digital transformation, innovation, but it's systems thinking.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing because you have to look at the entire system, not just a silo fragment of the system. If you would have only looked at a fragment of that challenge where you had the installer and the repair team with kind of colliding incentives.
Yeah, completely.
That was causing problems. If you didn't look at both of those and then look at the system and the intersection of those two roles, you would have totally missed it. And I love the whole investigator thing because it really is. Sometimes you're like unraveling a mystery to find the real problem to solve.
Yes.
But it's, and once you do, though, then it really accelerates the solution.
It really does. Yeah.
And the results.
Completely. Right. I think that's where AI can especially help us accelerate and scale because it can find those patterns, it can look for those things, and it can do it faster than humans. So let's lean into that and then figure out how do we solve this in the right way. But I think there's a lot of excitement around how we can scale with those things.
You mentioned like a little bit on where to begin to integrate experience more intentionally into strategy. And I really liked the notion of, well, if it raises revenue and reduces expenses, that's probably going to be a good thing, no matter what part of the business you're looking at. But is there anything else, like if for senior leaders who are looking at this, like, yeah, I want
Mhm.
an awesome customer experience, but I'm overwhelmed. Where's the highest leverage place that they could
Mhm.
start? Like, have you noticed a pattern there?
Well, I think most organizations, when they have that awareness, they do start with kind of what is often referred to as the find and fix model. So there are certain things that we know are not working usually, and they've just been put aside. We don't know who's in charge of them. We have decided it's not our job. When a leader looks at those and says, you know what, we're going to fix these things, that's usually the first step. And that can be really, really meaningful because customers really just want you to get the basics right. They just want you to keep your promise, be consistent, be honest. So if you know that there's a part of the journey that nobody likes, that is really painful, creating a lot of friction, and if you can fix that, that will make a dramatic difference. The trick is it's easy to plateau after that. So what usually happens is find and fix, find and fix. They fix the big things. And then it's kind of like, wow, our feedback metrics aren't changing because there's not as much to find and fix. And again, they're not connecting it to a bigger strategy. So they're still kind of waiting for reacting to things. So taking that next step and saying, okay, if we want to stay ahead of our competition for the next 10 years, let's focus on the experience because most disruptions of the last 2 decades have been experience based, not product based. So if you are not currently trying to disrupt your industry with your experience, someone else is right now. And which goes directly into, the work you do and the amazing thought around how to approach future focused innovation and all of those things, because that is really where the winners stand out in this. And I think a lot of organizations sit back and say things are working. We don't have to worry about it. We're going to keep asking our customers what they want. They might tell us, they might not. And it gets kind of a sense of complacency. And so they feel like they're doing it, but really they're not making the progress that they think because by not focusing on what we call experiential innovation, they're falling behind.
Yeah. And it's kind of sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
It's slow and then sudden.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I often say too, like customers are loyal until they're not.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear that from clients all the time. Oh, our customers are so loyal. They're loyal because you have what they need right now today. They are not loyal because they love you. I'm sorry, they're not. But if somebody else comes along with a better opportunity, an easier way to do things, something that is more interesting or fits into their lives better,
Mm-hmm.
they will leave you in a heartbeat.
Well, and the other thing, I think that's a kind of a blind spot. I mean, especially I see it in the industry that I work in finance. You can get pretty complacent thinking that you've got the customer locked in because
Yes.
switching cost and switching pain and switching friction keeps them with you, even if your experience sucks.
Yeah, completely.
And all you need is one firm that innovates the switching experience so that it's seamless. Boom, your customers
Yep.
are gone.
Yep.
And I'm just waiting for that to happen because I think it will. Anybody
think it
who
will
is
too.
looking at building for the customer of the future and is
Mhm.
paying attention to those intergenerational dynamics and how leaders that are coming up are thinking about how they want to interact.
Mhm.
If you're building based on the traditions of the past, you
Yeah.
might be missing some opportunities.
Completely. And I think the other thing to remember is that customers are not just setting expectations based on your industry. Like the reason people say we want to be the Disney of whatever or the Amazon of whatever is because they changed macro expectations. So there was a medical delivery organization I worked with, and their customers all of a sudden out of the blue said they used to get the window of time, like we'll be by, within these 2 hours or this 30 minutes. Their customers started saying, no, I need to see where you are on the map. I need to see where the truck is. And they were like, why are they asking for this? And it was like, because that's what Uber does. That's what, you can see it. And there's something very reassuring about that.
Well, it
And that's
reduces uncertainty.
exactly. And that's one of the things I talk about too, is like any point in the journey that you can provide proactive reassurance, you reduce anxiety for the customer. And the more we can do that, the more they will trust you, the more they know what the promise is. They know that their truck is going to be there on time.
Yeah, the easier it is to do business with you.
Right.
Doing business with you is not going to raise my blood pressure.
That's right. That's
that
exactly
matters
right.
in today's world.
Right. There are like, satirical music videos about how stressful the parking lot at Whole Foods can be.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, right? Like sometimes we have to steel ourselves for these experiences.
Yes.
And I think that the more you can look at those moments that people literally say, this is not working, and the more you can focus on those, that can really make a difference in your customer experience as well.
So you've been at this for quite a while, the customer experience adventure and gaining all of these insights. What is something you wish you would have known? You started saying we didn't know, but what's something you wish you would have known when you began this journey to reimagine customer experience and how it's done?
I mean, it's kind of ironic, but it's like, I wish I knew all the stuff I learned, right? Because at the time, I think we were just trying to get people to be aware that this was something, and to take the kind of smaller steps around it to understand the customer journey better. But I don't think we were connecting to this bigger strategy. I think that we weren't talking enough about the way I think about it is customer experience people for a long time. I don't think we were showing up as leaders of business. I think we were showing up as order takers. And that's one of the things I really try to inspire my clients is like, we are business leaders. We are the people who make things better. And we need to show up that way. And that means knowing enough about the business to make that strong strategic vision and business case so you get taken seriously. So that's what I wish I had known from the very beginning.
Well, the great thing is that you have put all of this knowledge and all of this learning into a great book. Where can people find out more about your new book, Jeannie?
Thank you. Well, it's available wherever you buy books. And then if you'd like to check out some of the fun resources we have when you order the book, you can check out experienceiseverythingbook.com.
Awesome. And I did that today. And I do want to say that your experience to pre-order your book was phenomenal. I'm like, well, obviously she's in the customer experience game because I know exactly what I'm getting. I know what to expect and I know what's next. So
excellent. Thank you so much.
Great job on that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to thank you, Jeannie, for joining me on the show. It's always a joy to chat with you.
It's always so fun. Yes, we could do this for a long time, whether we're being recorded or not. So
yeah, totally. Well, yeah, I mean, so much we have in common. So to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If this conversation resonated with you, I encourage you to explore Jeannie's new book and do the stuff in the book. I actually started reading the book today and I had to stop because there's an exercise in there that I wanted to do for my team. And so excellent. I encourage you to not only get the book, but read it and apply it because I think it's going to be a game changer for a lot of you. Thank you again for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and choose to make awesome happen.